and we will discuss them with each other. Do you have any comment on any of the parts of the video? Excuse me? I'm saying, do you have any particular comments about any part of the video?
No, sir. I haven't.
Okay, I would like to ask Ingrid. Ingrid, did you watch the video?
Yes, Professor.
Okay. Can you just very briefly explain to us what did you understand from this video?
Well, what I could understand was pretty much that how field work started in archaeology, like in a practical way. So there was this, I'm sorry, anthropologist. I'm so sorry, anthropologist who spent some time with a tribe and immersed himself in a different culture, so he could understand better how actually the culture worked. I found interesting about the explanation of, I think it's functionalism, that actually people, all actions, behind all actions, they are actually serving a purpose, and that's why people do. So
Okay.
that's what I could understand. It's a very interesting video.
Yeah, continue. I'm hearing you. I'm sorry. Any disconnection happened? Hello,
No,
Ingrid?
for me, everything remains the same. Can you hear me?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I hear you now.
Yes, that was it, Professor. Like, that was a quick summary of what I could understand. It's a very interesting video, like the habits and how people lived in that tribe. I found it very, very different, very interesting.
Okay, great, great. Let me open the PowerPoint, and we are going to explain every slide and discuss them with each other. Okay, Karina.
Yes, Professor.
Did you manage to understand just a simple definition of anthropology?
Yeah. It was pretty clear, actually.
Okay, great. How many definitions were there in the PowerPoint presentation?
4, right?
Oh, okay, do you remember any of them?
It was
By the way, you don't have to memorize any of them at all, but you just need to understand all of them. Then you can make up your own definition that you will know, that you will never forget.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, I remember the physical, which is the genetics of humans being, and the linguistic, which was the speaking, and of course the language. And
what? Just wait. What you are talking about now is
Oh,
not the definition. Those are the 4 subfields of anthropology.
oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said like the
Okay,
other.
so this is a different question. Those are the 4 subfields of anthropology.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no problem. So now I'm asking about the definition. Do you remember any definition?
And the only definition. Sorry?
No, no, sorry,
Excuse me.
sorry.
Oh, no, no, go ahead, go ahead. I already speak.
Oh, I was gonna say that you said that it was the studies of the humans. It's
Okay.
all their features.
Yeah. Okay. 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 Very good.
Yeah.
So anthropology is studying humans. Which features are we talking about? The biological features or the personality features or what exactly?
All of them, their psychological features, physiology, their social, I don't know, their cultures, the culture, their languages, um, the way
Okay.
they behave, and how they communicate with another people too.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Okay. Great.
oh, there you go. There it is. I think you
Great.
just put it.
Great. Very good.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Let's start. So you know that anything which ends with ology, ology means a science. Biology, anthropology, sociology, zoology, whatever word that ends with ology, ology is science. Ology is the scientific study of something. Okay? While anthropos is originally a Greek word which means human. Okay? So it is the study of humans. Fine? So, what exactly do you mean by the study of humans? It is the holistic study of the humans. What is the meaning of the word holistic? Holistic means total, it means comprehensive, it means everything related to humans. You get the point? So anthropology is the holistic study of humans. And we have here a very nice definition that I think Harsimran can read to us. The second point, the study of anthropology is concerned with. May you read this, please, Harsimran?
The study of anthropology is concerned both with the biological features that make us human, such as physical, genetic makeup.
Physiology. Let's wait
Oh,
word by
sorry.
word. What is the meaning of the word physiology? Physiology is the study of the human tissues, okay, in the body. But somebody might say, what, human tissues? In this way, we are studying biology, not anthropology. Yes, there is a little bit of biology in anthropology. Anthropology is not about biology. Is not about biology, okay? And this is not a big part of anthropology at all, but it is concerned just a little bit about about the biological side of humans to see how humans have changed over time. Okay, but this is not our central part. So, such as physiology, genetic makeup, and
Neutro, sorry, I can't. Uh,
nutritional. When we say nutritional, it comes from nutrition, the kind of food that people have been eating throughout history, because that is telling us a lot of information about the cultures of people throughout history and in different parts of the world. And that is enabling us to make some cultural comparisons. Okay, continue.
okay. And evaluation with social aspect such as language, culture, politics, family, and religion. Anthropology is the study of people throughout the world, their evolutionary history, how they behave, adapt to different environment, communication, and socialize with one another.
Excellent, excellent. Actually, we need to talk about every word in this definition. All of the words in this definition are referring to a particular part of anthropology. Okay. But before I start, anybody here has a comment on anything related to this definition, or would you like to say any opinion or an idea that came up to your mind while we were talking about that?
I do have a question. What does genetic makeup mean?
Yes,
Like,
I will
yeah.
go. Genetic makeup is the genes inside our body and how these genes were inherited from the parents and from the grandparents and from our ancestors. Okay, there is one of the very central topics in anthropology is the topic of racism. Okay, and at one point of history, especially in the 19th century, there were some people who were trying to justify racism by saying that humans are not equal. Of course, now we know that this is false. But they were trying to justify racism by saying that humans are not equal and they have different genetic makeup and therefore their mentalities are different and therefore they should not be treated equally. And of course that is false. We will know later that this is called fake science, and it was being used in the 19th century and in the 20th century to justify discrimination, to justify racism, okay? And we'll talk to a great extent about this topic in this course.
Thank you.
Okay, okay. But just to say it in brief again, the genetic makeup is the genes in our cells, in our body, and how those genes get inherited from parents and from ancestors. Okay, the nutritional history and evolution. And what is evolution? Did you ever hear about somebody called Charles Darwin?
Yes.
I'm just okay. What do you know about Charles Darwin? Who is?
I think he was the one who put the seeds.
Can I ask you, please, to all of you to turn on your cameras, and especially when you talk?
Can you see me? Mine is on, I guess.
Oh yes, Lucas. I can see you now.
So I think the guy was the one that I don't remember how it called in English, like little seeds, and he put like genetical makeups inside their genes, and I think so. That was that guy. I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay. Charles Darwin. Yes.
Isn't he the one?
Just
the one who
developed... so I can see your name. Yeah. So Adrian is speaking. Okay.
Yeah, he is the one that developed the theory of evolution.
Okay, and what is the theory of evolution?
That the humans come from I don't know how to say it in English, from the monkeys.
Okay,
it's an evolution.
This is what. Okay. What this is what the common people. This is the general idea about what Charles Darwin said. Okay, thank you very much. Really, Charles Darwin is the theorist. Is the one, by saying the theorist, I mean the one who made the theory of evolution. And the idea of evolution, I will simplify to you very, very much, just to...
We cannot hear you, Professor. You're muted.
You're muted, Professor.
Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, you're muted.
How did I become muted? Okay.
We can hear you now.
We don't.
Okay. 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 Charles Darwin is a theorist, a scholar who made a very famous theory. And when we say theory, there is a difference between a theory and a fact. A scientific theory, means that a theory that has some evidence, but at the same time you might have a counter theory which has a different evidence. Do you get the point? Okay. So Charles Darwin said that evolution is the transformation, the very gradual transformation over time of organisms, so they can evolve and get better characteristics which will enable them to face the challenges of the world, of the climate, of the needs, the economic needs, the weather, and so on. Okay? And he talked about two kinds of evolution: microevolution and macroevolution. Microevolution means that the organism, whatever organism we are talking about, can change a little bit in order to become more able to face some challenges. Like for example, a particular animal, or a human, or an insect, or whatever creature can become stronger, can become taller, can become shorter, can become with thicker skin according to the needs, and it happens over time and from generation to generation, so it will be able to face the challenges. For example, if this organism moved from a warm area in the world to the North Pole or the South Pole, generation after generation, the newer generations will have better qualities, will have better characteristics, which will enable them to face and adapt to the freezing weather. Okay, you got the point? Like for example, birds will remain birds; they will not change to something else. Okay, but they will have thicker skin, they will have thicker fur that will enable them to face the climate challenges. Okay, so this is called microevolution. Why it is called micro? Because whatever organism we are talking about remains the same organism. The macroevolution, he said that throughout thousands and thousands of years, okay, some organisms have evolved into other organisms. Simple organisms have evolved into more complex organisms. And as I told you, this is a scientific theory, and I explained what is a theory. Okay? So he said that some organisms have evolved into more complex organisms. You might have other scientists who disagree with him, but this is what he said. Okay, and this is the evolutionary history he's talking about. You understand now what is evolution? I explained it in a very simple way. Okay, you understand me? Whatever.
Yes.
Okay, and let's continue the definition. So nutritional history and evolution, and with social aspects. In this course, those social aspects are the most important central part that we are focusing on, such as language, culture, politics, family, and religion. Okay? Because humans are social creatures who live in a society, who get affected by the society. And there is a very famous and important saying in social science which says humans are made, not born. What do we mean by this sentence, by this phrase? Humans are made, not born. You might say, no, humans are born. We see babies get born. So how do you say that humans are made? Who made them? Okay.
That they are like molded into to be something in the society, like their behaviors and their actions through the time will mold them.
Exactly, Lucas. So what we mean by made, we don't mean their physical body. We mean their what? We mean their mentality, their personality, their ideas. The personality doesn't get born with the baby. The personality doesn't get born with the human body. Okay? But the human body knows nothing. Okay? This baby who gets born, yes, the baby has instincts, biological instincts, but biological instinct for humans is not the main factor which regulate the human behavior, which make the human behavior. What is much more important than the biological instincts is what we call socialization. And I want you to remember this word, write it down, socialization. What is socialization? Socialization is the process of learning culture. The socialization is the process of learning behavior. Okay? For example, this baby is born in a family, and the baby starts learning from the family members how to talk, how to walk, how to behave, how to interact. This is socialization, social learning. Okay? And then the baby, and then he grows up a little bit and goes to school. He or she learns from the school environment, from the teachers, from the other classmates, and interact with the neighborhood and interact with the peer group, and watches the media, the TV and the internet and whatever. Okay? And all of those are called agencies of socialization, the channels, the agents, the social organizations through which the human is learning the culture of the society, the way of life of the society, the behavior of the society. And all of those influences will make up the personality of the human. Okay? Do you get the point?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
Can we take an example of India in Rajasthan, like a discovery of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, and some
Can you
discover?
just explain your example a little bit more for everybody to understand, please?
Yeah. The government has discovered some discoveries in Rajasthan to learn about the pottery of the past culture, like the evolutions of Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, such as a past culture, like the tradition, how the people live in the past, like that.
Oh, okay, what you are talking about now is a very important subfield of anthropology called archaeology. Archaeology is when you discover the remainings of previous civilizations in order to understand more about their culture and their way of life. Okay? Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay? So, and with social aspects, I'm returning to the definition again, and now I'm on the third line of the definition. With social aspects such as language, culture, politics. Anthropology is not political science, but anthropology is talking more about the human culture. And of course, the human culture is affected very much by politics, right? Because whatever decisions the politician, any particular government will take, that will affect the way of life of people, right? So it will affect the culture, okay? And also the people themselves, the society, will affect the decisions of the politicians. Okay, so both of them influence each other. Okay, family, because the family, as we said, when humans are born, the first agency of socialization which influences the upbringing and the formation of the personality of this new human is whom? Is the family, right? And religion in all societies. Okay, religion has always played a very crucial role in forming the culture of any society. So you will find that even if the person is not religious, to some extent the behavior of the person is affected by the culture, and therefore it is to some extent affected by some religion. Okay, you get the point. Anthropology is the study of people throughout the world. We are not only studying people in a particular place. You are not studying people in America or in Canada or in India or in China or in whatever part of the world only, but we are studying people worldwide because we aim to do a comparative studies between different cultures to see how people are diverse, how people are behaving in different ways, how what you consider to be a correct behavior, some other people from another culture might consider it incorrect behavior, and we should try to understand each other, why you consider this to be correct and why the other person considers the same behavior to be incorrect. Okay, their evolutionary history and how they behave, and adapt to what? To different environments. Now most of us in this class have immigrated or are going to immigrate. Some of you didn't immigrate yet, okay, but most of the people in this class have immigrated from one culture to another culture, right? Okay, what happens after? In the first culture you were socialized according to the culture of the first society, right? So your personality is already formed according to the agencies of socialization in the first society you lived in. And then you immigrate, you go to another society with relatively a different culture. So what will happen? Another process called the resocialization or adaptation or acculturation, okay, which is what? Getting used to the new culture that you were not used to before, knowing how to interact with people whom are doing things in a different way, behaving in a different way, adopting different norms, adopting different values, okay, have different traditions. So how are you going to adapt to their way of life, or at least know how to deal with them, how to communicate with them, how to socialize with them? Okay. So although it is a very simple definition, but I try to explain it in detail so we will have a wide imagination of what is anthropology. Okay, so I hope that you have grasped the idea. If you still have any questions about the definitions, I can answer now.
No,
Okay.
I don't think so, Professor. Thank you.
Okay. Those are the subfields of anthropology, and we already talked about those for the last class. And those are the ones that Ingrid talked about also today at the beginning of the class. In anthropology, we have 4 subfields. Okay, each one of them has its own specialists. So if you become an anthropologist, You will not, anthropology here is a general specialization, but within anthropology there are four main specializations. Number one, the physical anthropology, which we also call biological
Excuse me,
anthropology.
Professor.
Yes.
We don't see your second screen, second slide.
You don't see my second slide. By the way, you
Yeah.
can move slides from your own screen.
Okay.
Okay, so try to go to slide number 3 from your own screen.
Okay, Professor.
Did you go?
No.
And thank you for this notification.
Yes.
Okay. So let me continue. So physical anthropology is also called biological anthropology. So the part of anthropology that talks about the genes, about the evolution, about different creatures, and what is the relation between humans and other creatures, and those theories, okay, that is called physical anthropology. And physical anthropology is the same exactly like biological anthropology. So whenever you find a question about biological anthropology and physical anthropology, don't get confused. They are the same. Okay? And the other subfield is archaeology. Archaeology, it tries to study the artifacts, the buildings, the skeletons, the tools that previous ancient civilizations were using in everyday life, in order to understand how those people were living, what they were eating, how they were interacting with each other. Were they living in big families or small families? Were they living in big houses or small houses? Did they live in cities or villages? Okay? What inventions, what tools they were using in everyday life? Okay, how they were organizing their political life, how they were learning, did they have schools or they didn't have schools? Okay, through archaeology we can collect lots of information about that. Okay, and linguistics. What is linguistics? Linguistics is not to study different languages. For you to study linguistics, that doesn't mean that you have to know English and French and Chinese and Portuguese and Spanish, okay? But it means that you study the social development of languages, how languages were developed, how the same language has some variations from one country to another, how within the same language we have dialects and we have accents, okay, and why human beings needed to invent language, okay, and why when they invented languages they needed to invent newer languages and they didn't stay interacting with each other in the same language. Okay, so anything that is connecting between the development of languages and the humans, the social context of languages, we call that linguistics, and it is a branch of anthropology. And then we have socio-cultural anthropology, and this is our main part, our main target in this course. The central part of the course is the socio-cultural anthropology. Okay, it describes and it analyzes and it interprets and explains human and cultural activity. Okay, so studying cultures, studying how cultures are different from each other, how within the same society we might have more than one culture, how within the same culture we might have something called subcultures. And let me explain this in more detail. Okay, uh, in this world we have we have more than 170 countries, right? Okay. And within every country, we have a society or more than one society. Okay. And what is the definition of society? Society is a large number of people who live together in the same geographical area and they share the same culture. This is a society. They have shared ways of living. They have shared ideas. They have shared behavior, shared values, shared norms. Okay? So, a society, a large number of people that lives together in the same geographical area and they share the same culture. Okay? But within this society, we might have groups. Not we might have, we actually have groups within every society. You and your family is a group within the society, right? You and your friends, okay, is a group within the society. Your school is a group within the society. Your university is a group within the society. Your neighborhood is a group within the society. People who belong to a particular age group is a group within the society. People who belong to a particular social class is a group within the society. So if you imagine that the society is a very big circle, within this big circle, you have many circles who might intersect with each other, right? Okay? And every group of people, although they are sharing the general way of life, they are sharing the general culture of the society, they are also having some special behavior that they don't share with everybody else. Like, for example, you can say that sometimes you say my family traditions. So they are traditions which are shared by your family members only, and you don't, and they differentiate you, they distinguish you from the rest of the families in the society. Okay? What do we call that? We call that a subculture. Okay? So any society has a culture. Within the society, there are social groups. Every social group has a subculture. You know, the tree and the subtree? This is a culture and a subculture. Okay? So you have within every culture, you have subcultures. What is a subculture? A subculture is a bit different, a relatively distinctive way of life, but within the general culture of the society. Okay? Like, for example, you say the way of life of the teenagers. Okay? The way of life of the teenagers in Punjab, in Mexico City, in Vancouver. Are they totally having a different culture? No, they are sharing the same general culture of the society, but at the same time, they have their special words, they have their special style, they have their special way of living that will differentiate them, that will distinguish them a little bit from the general culture of the society. You got it?
I have a question.
Yes.
So like just to clarify, for example, so if you have like 1,000 people in a city and for example half of them cheer for a soccer team and the other half cheers for another soccer team, those would be like two subcultures inside the culture of that city?
Exactly. In this way, each one of them will be a different social group.
Because they have different behaviors and they
and
behave.
every excellent, and every social group will share with each other some ideas that they don't share with everybody else. Okay. For example, now in this university, we are a social group with each other. We share some terminologies with each other that we don't share with everybody else. Well, for example, when you go to your neighbors and talk about the model, they will know what are they will not know what you are talking about, right?
Yeah.
When you talk about the term project, when you talk about the things that we will understand each other, when we talk about, other people will not know what you are talking about. So this is our subculture.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Professor,
Yes.
I have a question. Are subcultures and social groups the same thing?
Such subcultures, when we say subculture, this is the shared behavior of the members of a particular social group. Okay, so you and your family are one social group together. Okay, you share some ideas and you share some vocabulary. Sorry, and you share some traditions which will make you distinguish from other families in the society. So those things that you share are considered the subculture of this family. Okay. Let's continue. So describe, analyze, interpret, and explain human, social, and cultural diversity. So there is diversity. Why diversity? Because the world is full of hundreds of cultures. Okay, that's why there is diversity. And we have understood that more when we lived in cities that has many immigrants came from different parts of the world, and we have seen different ways of living and different ways of thinking. Okay, how do we study that? Do we study that only by talking about that, or for any study to be a study, it has to use scientific methods? For example, talking about the society is not sociology. Talking about humans is not anthropology. Okay, but doing researches with methodology, with steps, with data, with conclusion, this is anthropology. This is a science. Okay, for example, two persons might be talking about the same topic, but one of them is talking scientifically and the other one is not talking scientifically. If the first one is using evidence and is using researches in order to understand, okay, so this is scientific. But if the other one is only talking according to his impressions, okay, so this is not scientific, even if they are talking about the same topic. Okay, let's go to slide number 4. This is just a little comparison between the interests of physical and cultural anthropology, and we said that our major concern in this course is the cultural anthropology. We are mainly talking about the definition of culture, the subculture, the counterculture. What is a counterculture? We said, you understand, all of you now understand what is a subculture, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But if you are a group of people adopting a way of life that a bit distinctive from the rest of the society, we call that a subculture. What if this way of life is not only distinctive, is not only just a little different, but this way of life is opposing the wider culture of the society and is rejected by the wider culture of the society. In this case, we call it counter culture. Okay? Counter. Counter. The word counter means opposite.
So
Okay?
that is when you have two groups inside the same society that thinks like different and act and behave differently.
Not just differently. When this group of people, they are in the society, but they behave in a way that is opposing the culture or the wider culture of the society, and their behavior is rejected, is refused by the wider culture of the society.
So like Nazism would be an example, like, or no?
Okay. If we have a group of Nazis now
Yeah,
living in a liberal society, okay, and they express their ideas, and their ideas are rejected by most people in the society, in this case, it will be considered a counterculture.
yeah, I got it.
Okay, but if this group of Nazis are living a society,
Themselves,
that accepts their ideas,
then it's okay. Yeah,
it will not be considered a counterculture.
yeah, I get
Okay,
it.
so it's according to which extent it is rejected by the wider society. Ingrid, you have a question.
Yes, Professor, could you
And by the way, because I don't see everybody in the class, try when you raise your hand using the system itself, so I see the hand. Okay, so I might not notice you, but I notice you this time.
Oh, okay.
Okay, your question,
I
please.
just, if I may ask, if you could provide another sort of example of society rejecting that subculture, like something that is more practical that maybe we can spot in today's society. I don't know.
Okay. If, for example, you have a group of people who are adopting violent criminal behavior, okay, and for themselves, this is a normal behavior. They consider this violence and this practice of crime to be very normal for them, okay, but the wider society refuses that. The wider society condemns that. The wider society condemns this violent criminal behavior, and tries to punish them in different ways, and tries to prevent them from doing this behavior in different ways. Okay, so this would be considered a counterculture.
So for cultures, there will always be some sort of the greater society will try to push them away or try to isolate them from the rest.
Or they will try to punish them, or at least they are, even if they are not physically punishing them, okay, or even if they are not formally punishing them, at least they are rejecting their behavior, and they don't accept this behavior to be part of the society. However, those people exist in the society. Okay, you get it? Okay, so if those sometimes the more conservative societies will not only refuse crime, but they will refuse any kind of behavior that they are not used to. Okay, so at the beginning, for example, let's say that there are a group of musicians who are dressing in a very different way and doing a very different style of music, okay, and behaving in a very different way, and using a bit of different vocabulary, okay, and they are living in a very conservative village, okay. So at the beginning, the society of this village might consider these people to be practicing counterculture. Okay, but over time, and when they get used to this style, okay, and when the wider society becomes more tolerant towards those group of people, so later on it might be considered just a subculture, not a counterculture, although they are the same people and doing the same behavior. Okay, and the only thing that has changed is the degree of rejection. Okay, the degree of rejection. You might be doing a different behavior and I don't like it, but I accept it. Okay.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, how am I gonna differ? For example, the example I gave it to you, 500 people cheer for a soccer team and the other half cheer for another team. So, like here in Brazil, people hate each other and almost kill themselves for soccer. So, which one that would be? Would be like a counter culture?
The word counter is very relative. What is counter for you is not counter for me. Okay. For example, and usually we are using the word counter when we are talking about about a small group in a bigger society. But
Yeah.
if you are talking about two soccer teams or two religions,
Yeah.
or two sects of the same religion or two ethnic groups, we can't say that one of them is counterculture.
Okay.
Okay.
Professor,
But if you have, I'm sorry, but if you have a group of people, a relatively small group of, when I say relatively small, I don't mean 2 or 3 persons. Okay. When I say relatively small, let's say like 1,000 persons in a society of 1 million. Okay. And they are practicing a kind of behavior that is strongly rejected and refused by the wider culture. Okay. So the wider culture will consider them to be a counterculture.
So that would depend the point of view. If I cheer for one soccer team, the other soccer team for me, in my point of view, would be a counter culture.
Yes,
kinda.
I'm saying, Lucas, I was saying that usually the word counter is not used when we are talking about two big groups.
Okay.
You get my point?
Yeah.
Yes, the two groups don't like each other. Okay, but it is difficult to scientifically use the word counter to refer to one of them, because both of them are almost equally big in the society.
Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah.
I know that as a matter of fact, we must have one of them bigger than the other. Okay, but both of them are relatively equal. Relatively. Okay,
Compared
you
to
get the point.
yeah, compared to the
So
society.
scientifically, now I don't belong to one of those groups, and I live in the society. I will not call one of them counter.
Yeah, I get it. Because
Okay.
in comparison with the society, they're relatively small groups.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So it's kind of like
just wait. Michelle is talking, right?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
Michelle.
Okay. Michelle, the camera, please.
Oh, the camera, yes.
Thank
So, is it on? Yes.
Yeah.
So one example, could it be what happened in the States with the Capitol? Like with the Trump supporters?
Oh,
Or that?
wow. This is a magnificent example.
Okay.
Like the people who went to the U.S. Capitol and raided it and stole the things from inside. Okay, we can't. For example, those people came from Trump's supporters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but we can't consider all of Trump's supporters to be a counterculture. Okay, because the people who voted to Trump are 70 million American citizens, okay, which is a very big percentage. And we can't consider that to be a counterculture. They are almost 50% or 49% of the voters, okay? But from those, the ones who decided to do some kind of violence in order to express their political point of view, and they were rejected not only by Biden supporters, but they were rejected even by the other Trump supporters, okay? They will be considered a counterculture.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. A very good example. Thank you. The man bear. The
Yeah.
man bear. Man bear.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sir, can we take an example of the World War II, like in Germany, Nazi?
Okay. Okay. Now, in wars, again, we can't say counterculture. Why, the man bear? Because in wars, we are not talking about a group of people living into the same society. Okay? When we say counter, we mean counters from whom towards whom. Counter from a group of people living in one society towards the rest of the same society.
Okay.
Okay?
Like in dictatorships,
Like for example,
countries.
let's say that let's say that we have in dictatorship, let's say that there is a dictatorship, okay? The dictatorship itself will not be considered counter, or the group of people who are ruling the country in a dictatorship way or in a totalitarian way and without democracy. Okay?
Yes. Thank you.
Wait, I didn't finish.
Sorry.
Those people will not be considered a counterculture if the majority in the society accepts that. It's fine for them. They have no problem. Okay?
Yeah.
But if the majority refuses that and tries to resist to that, and only a very small group is supporting the dictatorship, so the small group which supports the dictatorship here will be considered the counter group which is adopting a counterculture. Okay? So it's according to the case that we are talking about. Neha Mitali, you have a question.
Professor, can we take the example of like the two person in the society? One person belongs to the Hindu family and other belongs to the like different families. Like, can we take the example of Muslim family? Like, if the Hindu family doesn't support the Muslim family, that it can be counted in the counter culture.
No. Again, why? I said, when Lucas was speaking to me about the two soccer teams, we said what we said, that we don't call different soccer teams or different ethnicities or different religious groups into the same society to be one counter and one is not counter. Why? Because both of them are original to the society. Do you get my point? And both of them are having a big percentage in the society, even if there is a very big difference in the percentage, that one of them is 90% and one of them is 10%. We can't call the people who belong to the 10% to be counterculture. Okay?
Okay, thank you, Professor.
But usually the counter, we use the word counter, but we can say a subculture here. We can say that each religion leads to different behavioral styles, okay, which can affect the subculture of every group, which can affect the daily practices of every group. You got the point? Okay.
Yes,
But
precisely.
but we don't use the word counter. Usually the word counter, we use it when it is something new to the society. It is rejected by the society, and it is also new to the society. Okay. And that's why I said that the example of the people who raided the US Capitol, we can consider that to be a counterculture, because that is not something usual in the American everyday life, right? Okay. When we said about, for example, a new group of musicians who suddenly created a new style of music and living, at the beginning only they will be considered a counterculture, but after some time, when the society gets used to their presence, will not consider them counterculture anymore. Okay.
That will always depend if the other part accepts, right?
Exactly. That's whether the other part accepts and whether the other part tolerates. Okay. Maybe you don't like some people and you don't like their behavior, but you tolerate them. Okay. You get. Yes.
I have a question. Okay,
Yes.
so to be more clear,
Okay.
when it's a counterculture, it would have to do with maybe political and social ideologies or something from the country, for a whole country. Anything that has to do with preferences, religion, um, things that you like that doesn't have to do with counterculture. Another example would be, for example, the indigenous people, the First Nations. What are
Okay.
they? Is that a counterculture?
Okay, very, thank you very much, Christelle, because you opened this discussion. But I want to tell you that in social science, don't try to make solid equations like chemistry and mathematics.
Okay.
Okay? Because
Sure.
in social science, the point of views of people keep on changing all of the time.
Okay.
Do you get what is today 1 + 1 = 2? Tomorrow it can be equal 3 or 4.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in social science, for example, the example that you have raised at the beginning, when the Europeans totally controlled, and totally dominated the Canadian politics, the Canadian society. And when they were justifying racism, and when they were considering racism to be good and not bad, okay?
Yeah.
At that time, they were considering the behavior of the native population to be counterculture, although the native population are the original people and they are the new ones.
Okay.
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 But because they considered themselves the owners, okay, and they didn't look at the other ones as equal humans, okay, they didn't consider them because they didn't look at the other ones as equal humans, so they rejected their style of living and they wanted to abolish it, and they wanted to force them to stop their way of life.
Okay.
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 Did you get the point?
Yes.
So in this case is a very good example which tells to us that we don't have a solid rule.
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
now the new ones are considering the old ones to be counter. Although usually it is not like that. Usually it is the old ones who consider the new ones to be counter
Of
at
course.
the beginning. Okay.
Sure.
But in this case, in the case of Canada, in the case of the U.S., in the case of different parts of South America, in the case of Australia, in the case of South Africa, in the case of New Zealand, the new ones were the ones who discriminated against the original ones.
Okay.
Because they were more powerful.
Of course, but because if it had been like the other way around, if the natives would have been more like stronger, the counterculture would have been the European side. But as they became stronger, that's the okay.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Crystal.
Thank
Adrian, you have a question.
Yes, and that example of the natives versus the general society is the one that I wanted to tell you also. But I also have a doubt now, and like in society, like in a society like in Canada, that the natives are accepted by governments. Are they still being the a counterculture group?
At least legally, they are not considered a counterculture at all anymore. And legally, now they are considered to be equal. Maybe some people are still discriminating against them, okay? But this is not institutional anymore, okay? And this is not official or formal anymore. On the contrary, now the government is trying to compensate them for the previous injustices they have been suffering from throughout generations.
Right. Yeah, but something that comes to my mind now is that even if they are already legally accepted by the government and protected, they might still have different way of living, right? And probably that might make him also still be some considered as a counterculture group, just because the way they behave and the way they socialize. Because in the end, it is some of them is still live in a different way than I don't know Western society does.
Of course, they are still living in a different way, because they say that it is the right to maintain their original way of life. And there are other groups as well in Canada and in other countries who are still living in a different way, okay? But on the official legal level, there is an acknowledgement that Canada is now a multicultural society that accepts all of different ways of living, okay? And no group should have the right to prevent any other group from living according to its own original culture or original religion or original way of life or original traditions.
Right.
Do you get my point? So yes, they are still behaving in a bit different way, but nobody has the right anymore to punish them for behaving differently.
So then another question. So in order to be a counterculture group, they should be first rejected to be considered as a counterculture group?
Exactly. So if you find that the majority are rejecting them, so in this way, the majority are considering them a counterculture. Even if this majority is not educated enough to know this word, to know this vocabulary, the word counter. Okay, but you find that the majority is looking at them as if they are different creatures who doing abnormal, rejected behavior.
Right.
Okay, so in this case, the majority will be treating them as if they are. And again, the word majority here might be a bit deceiving. The word majority might be majority in number. Okay, but sometimes but sometimes you might not be the majority in numbers, but you can be the majority in power. Okay, so for example, at the beginning, when the Europeans occupied the Americas, at the beginning they were not majority in numbers, but they considered themselves to be the majority, although they were not the majority, because they had the upper hand and they had more power.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay, Lucas.
So still on that topic.
And by the way, thank you very much for this fantastic discussion. I'm very happy that you are discussing, and I'm wondering where are the other 33 students in the class. I want them all to participate in every discussion, please. Lucas, yes.
So still on that topic, from the point of view of the native people in Canada, the European, they're also a counterculture, right? Because for the majority of the people who are living in Canada, the other ones, the new ones, were like different, so they were a counter.
Very, very good. So among the natives and each other, they will say, what are those people who came to invade us from Europe?
Yeah.
Okay, and what is this behavior that they are doing, and why they are treating us in this way? We are also considering them counter, and we don't like their way of life. We reject their way of living. We reject their behavior. We reject their culture. Okay, so from their point of view, they are the original ones, and the other ones are the invaders.
And they are being rejected by the native ones.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why the word counter is so relative.
Depend on the point of view.
Whether you are a neutral person looking at the matter, or you belong to a particular camp, or you belong to a particular side.
That it will always depend on the point of view you're looking from. Like
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
okay?
I get it.
But sorry.
No
but
problem.
if you are a neutral person,
then I don't have any countercultures. For me, it doesn't matter.
No, a neutral person, if you are a neutral person, it will depend on the amount of harm a particular group is causing to the society.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, for example, that's why when I was asked by Christelle I don't remember, Karina or Christelle asked me to give a different example. I have given an example of a group of a gang which adopts criminal and violent behavior. Why I have given this example? Because from my position, I don't belong to any of the groups, and I'm a neutral person looking at the society. So which group I will consider to be counter to any society? A group of people who adopts criminal and violent behavior, because that can cause harm to the whole society, and normally you will find that most of the society will reject this group.
Doesn't matter if it's group A or B, as long as they
Exactly. Yeah,
I get you.
Okay,
thank you.
And that's why also when Christelle said that, talked about the people who invaded the US Capitol, okay, those people, even the other supporters of Trump, refused what they have done. Even Trump himself refused what they have done, or at least he pretended that he refused that. Okay, and even the ministers of Trump refused what they have done.
Because they're criminals. Doesn't matter if they're Trump supporters.
Exactly, because the behavior that they are doing, it is so hard to find any public opinion that agrees with the violence that they have done.
To justify, there is no justification. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Professor?
Yes.
Well, and like, I want to also to ask you, are there some main characteristics of counterculture groups? Because uh, so at the end, well, we have the word culture there, right? And
Yes.
to me, a group of criminals, I don't consider it as counter. Well, the way that I'm just understanding the topic, a group of criminals or the Trump supporters that went to the Capitol and vandalism and behave in a criminal way. To me, I don't think that that could be a culture. The way that I see it, they just defending some idealistics and some uh, well, they just being kind of managed by government and political parties in order to distract people, right? And but how much does that has to be with culture, and how could they be considered a
Okay,
culture
okay.
group?
Let's return to the definition of culture. Culture is a shared way of living and way of thinking. Okay, right? This is a basic definition of culture: a shared
Yes.
way of living and way of thinking that includes all kinds of practices that people do. Okay, this is culture. So when you find that it is not, let's say that you find two or three friends, they have some economic problem, so they have stolen money from somebody. Okay, we will not consider that a counterculture or a criminal culture. Why? Because it is not something, it is not a way of life that they are adopting. Okay, but if you find that we have like 100 or 300 persons, okay, they say to each other and they say to themselves and they justify for themselves the act of violence and the act of stealing, and they say it's okay and it is our right, and the society is unfair, and they find lots of justifications for themselves to commit those acts. Okay, so it is not just an accidental crime that they have done, but it is a way of thinking and it is a way of living which leads to those accidents. Do you get the point? Do you see the
Yeah.
difference? Do you see a difference?
Yes.
Okay, so they are adopting a particular philosophy, they are adopting particular ideas or ideology that will say it's what we are doing is not wrong, what we are doing is the correct thing to be done, and it is our right to do that, and they find reasons for themselves to do that, and they try to convince more and more people to do the same. Do you see the point?
Yes. Yes.
It is not just one or three persons committed a behavior. Now you became during this conversation, for example, we disagreed with each other, and you became so nervous, and you talked in a very aggressive way. I will not I will not call this culture.
Right.
Why? Because it is something accidental that happened. It is just an incident. Okay, but when you go to the history of those people and you find that they actually belong to groups, to political groups, which adopt a particular philosophy, which adopt particular ideologies, and they even have plans, and they publish things on the internet, and they exchange with each other all sorts of justification for all what they have done. So in this case, that was not just an accidental incident, okay, but it means that they belong to a particular shared way of thinking among some people in the society.
Okay.
Okay, So when the majority of people in the society condemn this way of thinking and this way of behaving, and they say it is unacceptable and we rejected that and it is punishable by law and so on, okay, so in this case we call it counterculture, because it is a culture, it is a way, it is a shared way of thinking, it is shared way of behaving, it is shared ideology, shared ideas, and so it is a culture. And we are coming after a while to the more complex, to the more sophisticated definition of culture in this course, okay, and you will find that those people, it is not just they became nervous at that day so they have done that. No, they adopt a way of thinking which justifies for them what they have done, and they even had plans to do further things like assassinations and so on. Okay,
but based on their ideology then.
Based on their ideology, exactly. Okay, so and if there is an ideology, so that means that there is some shared ideas.
Exactly, and then that is kind of my question. I mean, the characteristics of a that a counterculture group must have in order to be considered as a counterculture group. Right?
Yes, exactly. So in for those, in those characteristics, to use the word culture, we don't use the word culture by in order to refer to individual behavior. Okay, so let's say that you like to have that now what is your country, please?
I'm from Mexico too.
Okay, you are from Mexico. Let's say that you like to have sushi for breakfast every day. Does this has anything to do with the Mexican culture at all? So in this case, it is just what? It is just your individual behavior.
Right.
Okay. So we will not call this to be part of the culture, but we will call it individual preference. So we are only using the word culture when we are referring to shared aspects, shared behavior, shared ideology, shared way of living. Okay, you get it?
Yes, Professor.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Lucas, are you still having a question, or I go to the next point?
No, sorry, I don't have a question.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, please, everybody in the class, I hope sometimes, what I like very much about discussions, that it shows that people are taking the course seriously, and they are engaged into it. But sometimes a problem happens that the other people in the class, they deal with the discussion as if it is a personal matter between me, Adrian, Christelle, and Lucas, and the few ones who are participating. And then they will say, okay, I will go to make a cup of coffee until they finish this conversation. It is not a private conversation. We are not talking, they are not asking me about a personal family problem that they have. Okay, we are talking about the topic itself, the shared topic that we are studying together. So everybody should be paying attention, and everybody should try to participate as well. Okay, and I will not do that now, but usually what I do when I find that I randomly call names, okay, and ask them about what we were discussing. And if they are not answering, that means that even if their name is here, they are not actually attending the class. Okay, so please, I want everybody to always pay attention to all the details. Okay, race as a social construct. Here, this is just an example. It says that there are many things in the society we think that they are biologically constructed, while in fact they were socially constructed. Okay? And we are going to discuss this topic in detail. Humans are one race. Humans are not different races. How? Why? Because throughout history, now, first of all, the origin of humans is one. Okay? And even when they got divided, when they got geographically divided into different parts of the world, okay, throughout most of the human history, there were no borders between countries and each other like the borders that we are having today. So humans have always been traveling from one place to another and have always been intermarrying with each other. Okay? So it is hard to find a person who is genetically from one race only throughout his line of ancestors. Okay? Unless this person belongs to a group that was totally locked in a particular geographical area throughout hundreds of years. Okay? Which is usually not the case. Do you get the point? So humans have always been intermarrying from each other. Humans are not different creatures from each other. Okay? You might have people who are who look black African, while they might have some white European ancestors at one point of time, and vice versa. Okay, so but societies have invented the idea of race in order to justify inequality. Societies have invented the idea of class in order to justify the inequality. Societies have invented the idea of age groups in order to justify different different treatments. Okay, so even when we talk about gender, there is a difference between the word gender and the word sex. Sex is the biological difference between males and females, but gender is a socially constructed difference between males and females. And here in this slide, we have at the bottom of the slide a scholar called Margaret Mead. Margaret Mead was a scholar. She was an anthropologist, and she traveled to different tribes and lived with them for a long time. And in some tribes, she found that the men over there are doing the behavior that we are used in our, or she was used in her society to be done by the females. And the females over there are doing the behavior that she is used in her society to be done by the males. Okay, and she concluded from that what we call femininity and masculinity in behavior, this is not biologically constructed but socially constructed. Okay, we learn that a boy should behave in this way and the girl should behave in this way. It is not born with us. Do you get the point? We learn that, or people might learn that whites are behaving in this way and the blacks are thinking in this way. That is not born with us, but those are all socially constructed, or to a great extent socially constructed. Okay, how can we know this information? Through research, through study, okay, through observation, that the scholar, the anthropologist, should do a research, and in this research he should observe how people are behaving, and the anthropologist should record this data, and you use this data in order to make conclusions in the research. Okay, and in the previous slide, in slide number 3, we talked about something called ethnography and ethnology. Okay, ethnography and ethnology. Whenever we are having the word ethno, so we are talking about culture, and ology means a study, so this is the study of cultures. Okay, that we study the ways of living of people, the behavior of people. Okay, now we are in slide number 5. I want, please, Jaspreet, score. Jaspreet, I'm talking to you.
Yes, Professor.
Read to us, and by the way, everyone in the class will read a different. We have here 3 different scholars said 3 different things, so I will randomly choose people to read those different parts. So all of you pay attention, please. Just read the first one, please. That this is Margaret Mead that we were just talking about.
Anthropology demands the open mindedness with which one must look and listen, recording astonishment and wonder at that which one would not have been able to guess. Anthropologist Margaret.
No, yes, we are. I was just wanted you to read what was said by Margaret Mead. Okay, so she says that that anthropology is teaching us to be broad-minded.
Yeah.
It teaches us to understand that cultures are not identical. Okay.
Okay.
And we can see different ways of life that we didn't ever think that this way of life might even exist. Okay.
Yes.
You get it? Thank you very much. And I want now Narinder Pal to read the next scholar. Narinder Pal?
Yeah, so the purpose of anthropology is to make the world safe for human differences.
Okay. Okay, very good. Thank you, Narinder Pal. The purpose of anthropology. So how the world will become safe for human differences when humans will not discriminate against each other. Okay. And actually, humans will keep on discriminating against each other until they understand each other and they tolerate the cultures of each other. Okay. So anthropology should play a role in order to make people accept the cultures of each other. Okay. Thank you very much. The last one, Rupinder Singh. Rupinder Singh.
Anthropology is the most humanistic of sciences and the most scientific of the humanities.
Okay, of humanities. Very good. It is the most humanistic of sciences because it is the science that talks about humans mostly. Okay? And it is the most scientific of humanities. What are humanities? Humanities are subjects which talk about humans. Okay, like for example, philosophy is a humanity, but anthropology is more scientific than philosophy. Why? Why anthropology is more scientific than philosophy?
I guess because it's I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand.
Yes, no problem.
I guess it's because it's based on research and data and facts and not just theory.
Excellent, very good, excellent, very good. Exactly, because anthropology uses research much more than philosophy. Okay, so what makes any science a science? It is research. That there is a methodology to reach the data. Okay, there is a methodology to make conclusions. Very good. Very good. Okay, 4 schools of anthropology. We will not read this in detail, but within those 4 schools of anthropology, the German, the French, the British, and the American, there are some differences. We don't care very much about the differences, but what we care about is, despite those differences, they all agree about some aspects. What are those aspects that they agree about? So despite the differences between the German school, the French school, the British school, and the American school, okay, they all agree about some aspects. What are those aspects that they agree about? Ethnography, field work, scientific method, and holism. Ethnography, field work, scientific methods, and holism. Whatever the disagreements between anthropologists, they never disagree about those 4 that we are explaining now. Okay, the first one, ethnography. I want please Simran to read to us this slide, please. Simran.
Yes, Professor. So the complete work of an anthropologist is called ethnography. It consists of conceptualizing a project of study, fieldwork, analysis of data collected during fieldwork, presenting the work in written form, film, etc.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. So ethnography is the study, we said ethno is culture, okay? And studying this culture through the knowing the behavior that people are doing and recording that and presenting that to the people who read to us, this is called ethnography. As if we are taking photographs of them even without using any photographs. But anthropologists have always been photographing the behavior of people in words, even if they didn't take actual photograph. They explain in detail how a particular tribe is behaving, what do they eat, how do they cook, how the children are interacting with the parents, how they are learning, how, you know. So they record all of the details about the daily life of a particular people in a particular social group, and that's why it was called ethnography. Okay, as if they were taking photographs to the, it is a metaphor, because the amount of details that was written in the field work was massive, and it was through those details we can imagine how those people are actually living. Okay, so anthropologists agree about ethnography. Okay, and they agree also within ethnography there is ethnology. Ethnography is studying different cultures and comparing between them, and ethnology is studying a particular culture. Field work, it's very clear what is the field work. Okay, the field work is in any research, the research can be a secondary research, okay, or the research can depend on secondary sources or primary sources. This is very important. What are secondary sources? Let's say that, for example, I am doing a research now about how the teachers were interacting with the students in the Canadian residential schools, in which the children of the native population were taken by force and kept inside the residential schools in order to force them to abandon their original culture and adopt the European culture. Okay? And I want to do a research about the behavior of those teachers and how they were interacting with the students. Can I go and observe those schools now? Can I? Answer me, please. Can I go to observe those
No.
schools now?
No.
Why?
No.
Because
No.
The native schools? Like you're
Not at this point.
Why I can't observe them now?
Because probably they might not be letting you in with this social distancing rules.
No, this is not the reason. Thank you. But this is
Well,
not the
what I
reason.
heard, what I always heard of people like Canadians talking about it is just that if you are, at least if you're like white or somebody
Sorry,
doesn't like something,
there
it's
is
kind of
some
hard.
noise and I didn't hear you correctly. I will mute everybody first and you unmute yourself and talk. Only the person who is talking, unmute yourself, please.
It's me. So what I always heard of the like people that live here or the Canadians is like it's really hard for them to go there because they get really offended. That it's not like you cannot go there. Like I mean you could, but it's just like they don't react in a nice way.
I could have gone there if I lived at that time, but the residential schools don't exist anymore.
Aren't they still a few like reserves? Oh, but
No,
the school, yeah,
no,
that's true.
the residential schools are that I'm talking about are those schools in which the children of the native of the aboriginals in Canada were taken from their families by force and kept inside the residential schools in order to force them to forget their original culture and adopt the European culture. Okay? And those schools were abolished and they are not legal anymore. Okay? So they don't exist anymore. That's why, as an anthropologist, I can't do a field study over there anymore simply because they don't exist anymore. Okay?
But they do have schools that are just like in the reserves, right? That's what I understood.
Excuse me?
Like they have in the reserves, in the native reserves, in the native lands.
Of course, they have their own schools, but those own schools are not residential schools. What
Not
the
anymore.
word we are going to watch a movie about the residential schools in this course. The residential schools were in the 19th century and in the early 20th century. Okay, those were schools made by the European colonialists who came to Canada, and they felt that the behavior and the culture of the native people is, from their point of view, is very uncivilized, and they didn't want their culture to continue. Okay, so they found that the only way to prevent this culture from continuing is to take their children from the families by force and educate them in special schools away from the families without any interaction with the families at all, in order to force them to forget the native culture and adopt the European style of living. Not by choice, but by force. Okay? And later on, like by almost the ends of the 20th century, the Canadian government apologized, and they said that those schools were a kind of violation to humanity and a violation to human rights, and they abolished those schools. Okay, you get my point? So
Yeah.
it is something that was happening in the past, and it is not still happening. Therefore, I can't go and observe anymore. So if I want to do a research about the interaction between the teachers and the students over there, the only way I can do the research is through what? Is through secondary sources. What are secondary sources in research? Secondary sources is when you get the information that from a previously collected source, like a book that was published about them, like a documentary that was done about them. Okay, so I can get this in. For example, let's say that I'm gathering information about Michelle. Okay, I'm writing a book. Michelle is a famous person, and I'm writing a book about her, but I'm taking the information about her from the articles that were published in the past about Michelle. Okay, so in this case, this is not a field work. This is what? This is called a desk research, which depends on secondary sources. Okay, but the primary sources, when you get the information directly from the people that you are studying. I directly ask Michelle a question and she answers me. Okay, I directly give Michelle a questionnaire and she fills this questionnaire. I directly observe the behavior of Michelle and record it. Okay, in this case only, it will be called a primary source. Okay, and in this case, we can consider it a field work as well, because the anthropologist is going to the field and observing the people, how they are behaving in their natural everyday life, and record this behavior. Okay. Now Charanjit Singh. Charanjit.
Hello, Professor.
Hello, Charanjit. Can you read the slide to us, please?
Which one, sir?
Yes, Charanjit. Can you read the slide to us, please?
Which one?
Yes, you have a slide in front of you on the screen, right?
Yes,
it is slide number 9.
Fieldwork is
Did you understand
distinguished.
my explanation about the difference between primary sources and secondary sources?
Yes.
Did you understand it?
Yes, sir.
What? Were you away? Were you doing a cup of tea or something?
No.
What? Okay, no problem. I will take the attendance now because the time of the class is up. So I have to take the attendance now.
Okay.
And please, nobody tells me after the attendance that during the attendance I had a weak internet connection, so I couldn't respond on time. Please. When I take the attendance, I can't change it. Okay. Anshal.
Yes, Professor.
Okay. And please, when you say yes, turn on your Amir. Okay. Harsimran. Harsimran.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Jashan Preet. Jashan Preet.
Yes, sir.
Mandeep. 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 Mandeep is absent. Mandeep. Okay. Narinder Pal. Narinder Pal.
Professor. Hi.
Rajveer Kaur.
Yes, Professor.
Okay. Rajveer.
Yes.
Okay. Rapneet.
Yes, sir.
Rapneet, can you please? The camera is important.
Yes, sir. My camera is on.
Okay.
Yeah. Present, sir.
Rupinder.
Yes, Professor.
Okay. Jaspreet.
Present, Professor.
Damanbir. Damanbir.
Present, sir.
Okay. Damanpir, I want to see you, please.
Yes, present.
Okay.
Yeah.
Charanjit.
Present, sir.
Charanjit. Okay.
Hello, sir. Present.
Hosanpreet. 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 Absent. Khalil. Khalil.
Okay.
Khalil Jibril.
Yeah, here.
Khalil, you are present or absent?
Present, present.
Okay, where are you? I need to see
I'm
you.
raising my hand. Here. I'm raising my hand.
Okay, thank you. Now I have seen you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Kiranjit.
Present, Professor.
Thank you. Anshuman. 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 Okay, so Anshuman is not here. Let me first of all just wait.